So I'm responding to a set of comments on the channel because someone cut and pasted some stuff from a website and probably doesn't even know where it came from. About 2011, someone came up with a meme that was based on doing the UCC scam where you fill out paperwork online until you can get away with getting money sent to your bank account because you're posing as being a bank. And then when they find out you're not a bank, you have to give the money back and you're liable to go to court and prison. But anyway, the website, besides being one of these stereotypical sovereign citizen conspiracy theory spewing websites, made a bunch of claims that someone is parroting here and getting actually asked backwards because he didn't read the original. It's been cut and pasted so many times with errors on Facebook that they're... Anyway, the link for those is archive.vn/ and it'll be MICKY, Mickey, that's funny, or PGU7R. And it's about birth certificates, and it's a bunch of bullshit, just like always, because it's sovereign citizen, grammar, quantum grammar, Nazi kind of stuff. But anyway, let's get some facts in before we start diving into this stuff head first. Before 1837 in England and Wales, evidence of births, baptisms, marriages, and deaths, and burials, because they were traditionally handled at the church, was dependent on the events being recorded in the records of the Church of England or the local church. And as you might imagine, having a history of the government being basically enabled by and controlled by the church and disconnecting them so that they don't have any power anymore, this was part of the transition. They had to switch it over to being civil or secular. That's a dirty word. So anyway, July 1st, 1837, it then became a requirement that a certified copy of an entry in the birth register had to be done. A civil registration of births, marriages, and deaths in England and Wales. Started, and it was compulsory by 1875. Registration of a birth was the responsibility of those present at birth, witnesses. Basically, that's all it was. It just means that you are willing to say, under penalty of perjury or being called a lying bastard, you saw this person come into the world, that's it, and then you try to create kind of a record trail to follow them so that you can confirm it's the same person so people can't impersonate somebody. And, if you claim to be born to this person over here, you have a birthright to, maybe inherit something or at least, be recognized, that sort of thing. And if it's not really a big deal for you, at least it just proves that your name is a certain name. But, is a little bit better than recording stuff in a Bible and putting it down, but, maybe. Details are entered into the register book at the local register's office for the district in which the births took place and is retained permanently in the local register's office. A copy of each entry in the birth register is sent to a general register's office as well. And this is what causes your birth certificate. This isn't much different than what happens in every other country. Any presumption or rule that someone comes up with to try to make a birth certificate mean something else, like using it like it's a check and you're owed money, which is literally what the redemption movement's about. You say the fact that you were born means you're owed millions of dollars because reasons. So the idea with that is that you just claim the birth certificate has a dollar value, and if somebody sends you the money because you filled out a form that's actually for a bank transfer that you're only supposed to do if you work at a bank and you have an arrangement, it's shame on you for doing that. It's also shame on them for not catching it, but you have to give the money back. And this kind of scam, larceny, that sort of thing, has happened a lot. And people are pretty much aware of it. This is also used as an argument in court to gum up the works by claiming that your identity can't be confirmed because you cashed in your birth certificate for a bag of beans or something. And it's used as a way to argue in court till you're blue in the face, a bunch of crap, hoping the court will drop the case. Now, this at one time kind of worked. You don't win the case, the judge just decides to drop the case because you're basically giving them a headache. It's not because you're clever. It's not because you're doing well. It's because you're heckling the legal system. But once it got around that someone actually got away with this, number one, a lot of those people, where they dropped the case, they just started the case back up and dragged them back into court kicking and screaming and punished them. They get to say, yeah, they dropped the case once, and then they prosecuted you twice, once for wasting their time and once for the original purpose. And no, it's not double jeopardy. They just stopped prosecuting. They can resume. It's only if they lose a case that they can't prosecute you again. Double jeopardy, at least in some cases. So anyway, this goes along with the quantum grammar people who did this kind of run around bullshit to heckle the system, and them also feeling a need to show up at no notice, no reason, just post shit under your video. Now, I have videos obviously addressing this, but this also happens if I put up a video about how to mix up pudding. So let's get on with this. And no, you can't see my pudding video. Why does Russell J. Gould mess with your ego so much? And this is a presumption that it's messing with my ego. Okay. Russell J. Gould and a couple of other people are notorious on the internet for getting people to give them money to tell them to do something in court that doesn't work, by making hundreds of claims just as stupid as the one I just explained over and over again to basically harass a court system. And what inevitably happens, and they never acknowledge it, because they're willing to go through a bunch of shit so it looks like they're powerful and so it looks like they deserve money from you so that you can be just like them. What inevitably happens is they eventually keep doing this crap until they dead ass get thrown in prison. In some cases, actually most of them so far, they turn out to be somebody who's willing to run a scam for millions of dollars and then be out and proud about it. They're just trolling and trying to get money out of it. That's it. And again, if you're a sovereign citizen wannabe, and if you don't like the law that says that you have to have a driver's license, you can make it to where your city, county, or even state no longer requires a driver's license. You could do it under an explanation that there's a presumption that everybody, after they've learned to drive taking a driver's test, that they should be given a lifetime driver's license. I mean, it practically is. But the problem is that these individuals want to go without having a driver's license. They don't want to have a license plate. They don't want a VIN number. They don't want to be identified, so if they do a hit and run, they can get away with it, because that's actually the origin story for that argument, that I'm not driving, I'm traveling. You're just coming up with an argument in courts to gum up the works. And what the courts have seen fit to do is, when you bring up frivolous arguments like this, in order to go any further with you wasting their time, they make you pay them the money for wasting their time, which inevitably results in these cheapskates not doing it anymore. And no, they're not activists fighting for anybody else's rights. They're scam artists. And that's what they all end up being, including Russell J. Gould. So the person saying, why is this bothering your ego? That's just not the subject matter. So that's done. The more waptek speaks, the more indoctrinated you sound. The idea that the individuals are presenting is that if you don't agree with them and obey their orders and kiss their ass, you're indoctrinated. No, I'm telling you, I don't believe you. I think you're full of shit, and I don't think you have any effect. And everybody you hold up as a hero has lost every single fucking case. And gotten thrown in prison in most cases. For attempting to get away with larceny. Bilking people. Bilking little old ladies out of money. Waptek fits the slave mentality. Okay, I am not going to obey you, and I'm not going to obey your little cult. I have better things to do than try to get away with something. You're criminals. Yelling slave mentality, indoctrinated, or saying that I'm driven by my ego instead of discussing subject matter doesn't change the fact that I will be discussing the subject matter, which you're trying to avoid. And that you steadfastly refuse to look up anything that might tell you you're an idiot for doing something stupid like this. Ever heard of slave papers? That sounds like an unusually dumb thing to say, just because of the way you posted it. And then he says, I'm a dimwit. Then he says, a settlement certificate is a birth certificate. No, it's not. They're just not. I'm not even going to discuss it. You haven't presented any proof. And then you start citing something that I actually looked up. You don't cite the original source. You don't explain where it came from. Even the original source, and it's not really an original source, but the most original source I could find from 2011 probably goes back many years before that. But nobody cites their source because it's somebody that has no authority. It's a whole essay of random shit like this. And then it goes on to tell you you can totally get $1 million out of the government or whatever you want because reasons. Since the year 1837, an official document issued to validly record poor or paupers, granting them certain basic rights and entitlements to benefits in exchange for recognition of their status as being owned as property. That last part doesn't make any sense and has to come from somebody deliberately misinterpreting things or just fucking lying. And yeah, I saw the same data. There's a rule at one point that was named after the word poor. That doesn't mean that has to do with what you're talking about. These are indentured or lawful slaves. Okay, and this logic has some reason for it. I actually read the originating source for this, where you got this from. It doesn't hold any water. If you look up birth certificates, you can look up something that refers to poor, and I'm going to spend a couple of minutes doing that. I'm just going to grab the Wikipedia article, not because Wikipedia is particularly good, but because it infuriates the living shit out of people who post this kind of thing, because they don't like me looking up the Wikipedia article, because it kind of gets to the point most of the time, but not always. So we look up the word poor. Now, I found it a minute ago. I might not find it again, but here we go. Find on this page, P-O-O-R. Okay. India. And there was one for England. Let me look up England and see here. Oh, I forgot. Look up the year and I find it. Yes, this is going to end up being a second take video. I know it. I just know it. Sorry for wasting everybody's time here. Find on the page. Bam. Okay. Can't find it. Oh, that's right, because it's not there. So, yeah, there was a reference to a rule like that on a page. Sorry, I can't find it. The point is that a birth certificate isn't what you think it is, even though it's a certificate that proves that someone was born, and it just means people witness someone being born or can attest the fact that the person in front of them, the baby, was born. Sometimes without a name assigned yet, because you get a name from your parents. That's what it means. There's no reason to create an extra meaning for it. There are even examples of people having a birth certificate that couldn't possibly be considered the same way you are because you're making it about the filigree on the edge or numbers or something. And there are birth certificates that people have that just indicate the time and date stamp when they were born, and they're the hospital certificate, which just means it's just a signed out piece of paperwork that's usually a souvenir from the birth. But if it's all you have, it's not legally admissible in court, but it is legally able to be used to say, I have a piece of paper with someone signing that they witnessed a birth. That is not really official as a birth certificate, but it is proof that someone made an assertion. And some copies of it even say under penalty of perjury. And it can be used as a way to bring a witness in. And really all it is, and if you're not aware of it, is that this piece of paper stands in for dragging people in saying, on this day, did you see someone being born? Yes, I did, and it's in my little notebook. Okay, and here's a piece of paper that just signed it. That looks like a signature. Yeah, okay. And do you have any reason to believe that that person, wasn't born or anything? No. I mean, this is something so bog standard in life that it really is kind of silly we even have these. At one time, people could just claim, I am such and such name, and that was it. How are you going to prove it otherwise? We then got to where we had to identify ourselves. There was a lot of people. And getting witnesses every time you needed to verify someone's identity was just a little cumbersome. So we used this slip of paper to shorten up the work. It's a paperwork kind of thing. It's bureaucratic stuff. Saying it means some fantastical thing isn't something anybody has to respect, and I won't do so. Nobody should respect what you're saying, and I don't even want to let it post. Please come back here when you have something to critique in my video that makes some sense. Good day.